If you're caught in a cycle of obsessive thoughts, compulsive behaviors, and constant worry, whether it's the need to wash your hands repetitively, check locks, or mentally replay past events, you know how exhausting and overwhelming it can feel. These patterns can steal your peace, your presence, and your joy. I'm Crystal Derksen, your co host. In this episode of the Robert Jean Experience, we're talking about something that affects over 2 million people in the United States alone: obsessive compulsive behavior. Whether it shows up in the repetitive hand washing or the obsessive thoughts or the constant mental looping, this struggle is more common and more misunderstood than most people actually realize. If you or someone that you love are stuck in these patterns, this is the episode to share. There is real hope, and you do not have to live this way. Robert Jean, your host, is a neuroplastician, a behavioral engineer, and a drug rehab consultant with over 40 years of experience helping people transform their minds and their lives. He's one of America's leading experts on stress, trauma, PTSD, and addiction. If you've been stuck in obsessive compulsive behavior, Robert Jean has the answer. There is a path to real freedom, and it starts right here. Hi, Robert.
Hey, good topic. As a matter of fact, this topic was the very first client I ever worked on. OCD, obsessive compulsive disruption. It's not a disorder, and most people don't realize. Now, it is a disorder if you go to someone who doesn't know how to change the problem or the cause and what drives it. So, yeah, so if you go to the wrong people, you got a disorder.
That's right. And the medical world really does refer to obsessive compulsive disorder as a disorder,
Hmm.
and it's often labeled as actually a lifelong condition. So, how do you see this differently? And how would you like to redefine it? Or how do you redefine this?
Do you have the description,
Yes.
what they say it is? Just read that. I like to hear what they say.
All right. So, this is according to the National Institute of Mental Health. OCD is a disorder marked by uncontrollable and recurring thoughts, obsessions, repetitive and excessive behaviors, compulsions, or both.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. Of course, I started this work, I say, I mean, it's a long time before I started the tapping process. Of course, studying the neurolinguistic programming is basically the structure of how the mind processes information. And, Anthony Robbins, Tad James, Dr. Richard Bandler, all these guys were part of my learning process. And then in 99, I bought the course from Gary Craig, EFT, Emotional Freedoms Technique, and then The Ultimate Therapist. And the main reason why I even started going down that path was because, at the time I was married, and before we got married, she said, hey, I was abused by my father. And then around when my daughter reached the same age, her abuse started. A lot of stuff showed up. But for her, I wanted to figure out how to help her. But one of the biggest problems she had is that she couldn't throw things away. Matter of fact, she always had to make sure she's on time with everything. Everything is time. You look at the clock and know exactly where she is. So she had this obsession to always be at the right place at the right time. And then, of course, she had stacks of things she couldn't throw away. And I have no training in this stuff. I just knew this is a pattern. And so I tried to figure out, I started working on her with the processes and also still studying about the mind. And that was her program. She said I have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's not a disorder. But what is it and what drives it? And here's the key. It took me a while to figure this out. What drove this is because her father would come in at certain times when he come home from late at night and when mom's taking a shower, right?
Right.
So what she figured out is if she would try to be perfect or do things timing, maybe it won't happen again, So what drives obsessive compulsive behaviors is that it's the fear of something bad's going to happen. And so they try to do certain things so it won't happen. And this is the driving system behind it. So again, if have you been sexually abused a good part of your life, or you've been physically abused a good part of your life, or you've had some trauma at school, these traumas drive you. And so what people have done, and again, what they've done is they try to do things to keep it from happening again. So, but the bizarre thing is, and I work with some really, really, I say crazy, some really big stuff on OCD. I mean, I worked with it for years, and for her, it was just trying to keep her safe. So that's the driving force behind it, to try to keep her safe. And there's also emotional links and emotional programmings that drive the whole system. So it's not a disease. It's a coping mechanism. It is, I'm trying to be safe. I'm trying to protect me. I'm trying to keep something from happening. Now, the same thing is perfectionism. There's a lot of people try to be it perfect, and you know that one, don't you? You got to be it perfect. If it's not done right, if you don't have your homework done, something bad's going to happen. That is
Mhm.
what we call a mild form of OCD.
Wow. Okay.
Mild
Wow.
form, because again, there's extreme forms and there's mild forms. And I work with some really, really big ones, really bizarre ones, really, you know. So again, the system that drives it is the fear of something bad happening.
Yeah. Would
That's
you
the
say
key.
that? Yeah. Would you say that that's almost always the driver, that something bad will happen?
Well, we can say almost,
Almost.
very
Okay.
frequently, commonly,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So could
Now,
you,
now
do you
let me
know?
pause you here too. Let me finish a little bit here, because sometimes you can learn to have this by watching someone else do it.
Oh, yes. I hear
So
what
then
you're.
you can learn to be compulsive,
Yeah.
obsessive compulsive trainers in your world. So you can learn it by witnessing them too.
Yes, it's so true. And I can see where I can go into where I could so easily go into what they're doing. So what makes the difference? So let's say I'm even watching someone. They're doing, like, let's say they're washing their hands over and over again, and
Mhm.
I can so easily like think about the germs, and I can make
Mhm.
myself get to that place.
Yes, yes,
So
yeah.
then, so what makes the difference? Okay, let's actually do it. Let's talk about it this way. Let's say two people grow up in the same home. One
Mhm.
is OCD and one is not.
Well, they aren't OCD. They're practicing obsessive compulsive behaviors to stay safe. So
Yeah,
again, the difference is references and the novelty to why they're doing what they do.
right. Why they're doing what they're doing.
There is an internalization of something.
Right. Okay. So that's why one person would step into the pattern or into the loop of the thinking patterns, the emotional
Mhm.
drivers, everything in that.
Mhm.
And one
Mhm.
person would look at that and think, like not even bother with it.
That's stupid. Yeah.
Right, right. So, and we don't want to shame anyone that's doing it
Mm-mm.
either
No.
or blame anyone. So
It's not an illness. It's a coping skill.
it's a coping
But the
skill.
problem is they can take this skill and expand it through all types of areas of their life too. All areas of their life. They can make it really big. And but God, by the way, this is a how to stay alive. This is how to process the world. As a matter of fact, a lot of clients who come to see me, they have what you call mild symptoms or mild behaviors of this.
Hmm. So can you name some of those behaviors? And so to our listeners, one thing Robert does is he answers my questions before I ask them. So that is the kind of teacher he is. So if you have questions, most likely Robert will answer those questions along the way. So that was actually one of the questions that I had regarding, let me just go and
What
find.
was the question?
Yeah, well, the question, it had to do with, now I'm finding the question here. Um, so some of the hidden ways that OCD shows up, and you're talking about perfectionism. So like
Mm. Oh yeah,
if it's not extreme, some of the subtle ways that OCD shows up. What are
yeah.
some of those hidden ways?
Well, some of the common ones is, like I said, perfectionism, trying to make everything perfect so nothing bad will happen. It'll keep something happen from you or your family. That's a mild version of it. Other versions of it is, again, like I said, like the ex-wife, she was, oh, it had to be on time or else. So very obsessive. Or another one is never on time, never on time.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Can you
Yeah.
explain the process of that one?
Well, again, the process is there is multitudes of ways that people do this.
Yes.
Again, it's a weird program because they learned it by watching someone else, mom and dad or somebody, and then the big whoopla, the big mess, the big argument, the big fights because I'm always late. And also it's the feeding of the self-shame, the guilt and not being good enough, etc., being late. And then of course the avoidance of being there, not wanting to be there, diverting attention from doing something you need to do is another part of this. So it's a very strange system. I say strange, it's just peculiar. It's just an internal processing, always being late, and there's a reason. And again, the reason is internal. And most likely, a lot of times it goes right back from witnessing and watching other people and or experiencing it yourself, the shame, embarrassment, etc. So it's a weird system, but I don't want to throw anybody out of the bathwater with it, but it's just an operating system. It's
That's right.
always, always, always. And,
Hmm.
and then again, if they can't be on time, they don't feel good about it. And I think there's part of it is you get attention, even though it's unwanted attention, is still attention. Because you walk in and late, everybody turns and looks at you, at church or at school or at class. Even though you
Right.
say you hate it, but you obsessively do it.
Yes. Oh, wow, that is so interesting. I grew up with a dad who we were late for everything.
Mhm.
Everything, even my cousin's wedding. I mean, we walked down the aisle at the same time as the bride. So, and then we sat down and I remember, oh gosh, that's embarrassing,
Mhm.
but that's it. So it can be linked to OCD, being late.
Oh, it's an obsessive behavior, and they can't stop it.
Yes.
They
Yes.
try, but they're always going to find a way to be late.
Oh my gosh. And there's always something that happens that we were late.
Yeah. But by the way, let me just say this. There is a broad spectrum of the mechanism. Let me just say this. This is a normal innate build system inside of us to stay alive. This is
Mm,
a survival skill the brain has, the avoidance of pain. Now, again, I step inside the mind of people and figuring out exactly how they create this program.
yes. And
There's an
that's the
internalization
main.
that creates it. Yes.
Yeah. And for those of you that have never attacked it or never never attended one of Robert's tap alongs, you must do that because this is where you will watch Robert use the skills that he teaches in level one. It is
You can, yeah.
incredible watching Robert and learning how to take control of your life.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, most of the disorders that the psychological community dish out to people who are experts at specific ones, we all possess and use at different times, smaller levels and higher levels. The professionals who are really, really good at it, they usually got the label, and others don't even realize they're actually practicing this process for survival.
Right. Yeah. So how about
So,
those that love the label? They love
huh?
the label. They
Well,
get
I don't know if they, yeah, I mean, you say they love the label. It's not necessarily they love the label, but it becomes because a lot of them think they're crazy. There's something wrong with me. And they say, oh, no, you just got OCD.
That's exactly what I mean. They bought into, I have a disorder.
Yeah, but remember, you get the disorder from people who don't know what the fudge they're doing.
Yes,
They
those
don't know
fudge.
how the brain works. They don't know how to change the cause of the OCD. And it's OCD is just a coping mechanism to keep people safe and alive. So if you go to someone who can't change memories, which is the cause of all our problems, the cause of all of our successes is memory. And so if you can't change the driving force behind the process of whatever that they're doing, whether it's OCD, bipolarism, obsessive compulsive, it could be, it's bipolar, yeah, all these different disorders are natural innate systems that we process. paranoid schizophrenia. We all do a little bit of that. We
Mm,
may not be professionals at it, but there are
right.
some, we all do parts of it, mild parts of it.
Yes.
A
Oh,
perfect paranoid schizophrenia, you just recently married and you text your husband or your wife and they're not returning your text. And then you go into your paranoia, go, oh my God, he's having sex with a secretary like my ex-husband did.
oh, yes.
And they start making up a story and they keep trying calling and nothing's happening. He's not responding. And then you watch TV, there's an accident on the road, the same path that he comes home, and oh my God, he had an accident, got killed because he's having sex with her while he's driving. All right. So this is a mild form of paranoia. And then, of course, when he walks in with roses in his hand, he gets a pot slapped upside his head because she thinks he's cheating on him and his phone died. And he stopped to get roses for their anniversary. But again,
Wow.
it's the paranoia. And
Yeah.
each one of us does that. We presume, we think what other people are thinking. That's a form of paranoia.
Mhm.
Mild form.
Yeah.
The
So
ones who
then,
are really good are really big at it.
yeah. So what is the prevention? So let's say when we start noticing ourselves going into it, like, is there something we can do in that moment?
Well, first of all, you got to know how to change yourself. If you don't know how to change yourself, you might as well just join the psychological group and get a tattoo. I have OCD, you know.
Yes.
So what you need to do is learn how to be in control of the self, which means how to know and how to adjust memories within yourself. That's the key. And know how
Right.
to emotionally regulate your inner processing,
Mhm.
which is the key. Now, most people will believe whatever their brain gives them. Intrusive thoughts are thoughts that your mind is giving you based on something else that you've experienced, witnessed, or watched.
Mhm.
So we go back to OCD. Now I work with a lot of really bizarre ones.
Mhm.
Uh, I think some of the early ones, my ex-wife was the first one, and we cleaned it up because her fear was what bad's going to happen. And perfectionism is a mild form of OCD. I've got to get it right, or else something bad's going to happen. Somebody won't love me, or something bad's going to happen. Again, it's driven by what? Fear.
Fear.
And you'll never be perfect because perfection doesn't exist. So this is a standard that can never be achieved, ever.
Mm.
I just say do your best. That's all. Right. So now we go back and we'll talk about a young man. I think at the time he came to see me, he was like 18 years old. He had several OCD systems. Fears are basically a mild form of OCD. It could be big too. So first of all, we started out, he had a horrible fear of elevators, fear of being enclosed in places, right? So I just go in, we start working on where it came from and what happened. And somehow he was locked in a closet or something. So we change the memories and change the emotions and then we adjust it. And then we have an elevator, we go check it and we clean up issues. But one of his biggest ones, and I work with many people with this same fear, OCD, obsessive compulsive disruption, is he has to stop 100 times, not quite 100 times, but a lot, going home to check and see if there's a dead body under his car, his truck. So in his mind, he pulls over 100 times. I'm exaggerating, 100, probably 10 times, but he kept pulling over. And so I started, I said, okay, listen, I don't have this problem, but I would love to have this problem so you don't have to do it anymore. Anytime you need to do it, I'll just call me and I'll do it for you. But I want to know how you do it so that I'll know what to do. He
Mhm.
thought, well, that's kind of weird. I said, just trust me on this. I know what I'm talking about. So listen, so here you are, you're driving. How do you know when it's time to check underneath the car? How do you know when it's time? He goes, well, I'm driving. I hit a bump. And in my mind, I see a dead body in my car or truck, actually. And he pulls over. So process bump, image in the mind. He believes it's true. He pulls out and checks to see if it's there. And so he's driving again. In his mind, he sees the dead body in his car without a bump. So he pulls over and checks again. He does this all the way home. A bump. He keeps seeing the image in his mind of dead body on the car. And they say even when he gets home, he's in the house. And in his mind pops in the image. So he gets a flashlight and go look under the car, see if it's there. Now, by the way, he's been checking all the way along. There was no dead bodies. So I said, okay, let's say, for example, I said, thank you for teaching me how to do this. And I said, listen, you're driving home. You see the dead body of the car in your mind, but you can't stop. You have to go. You can't stop and check it. What bad thing's going to happen? The key. He starts to cry. I'll be arrested. I'll be thrown in jail. I can hear my mother crying outside the jail. She can't save me. Big tears. We start cleaning this up, and all of a sudden we go back to a different memory. A memory when he was in the hospital and he had lots of surgeries. They strapped him down to a gurney and they're taking him into surgery. He's scared. He's crying. She's crying. So it is all driven by an emotional experience that kept repeating an emotional pattern. Remember, if you understand, the brain is a recycler of experiences, ideas, events to keep us safe, but also keep us in alignment with what we've experienced in the past. So when we clean this up, we adjust the emotions, adjust the memories. Now he can drive and no pulling over. Same thing. So it's an internal processing. So there's a guy from Italy. He's riding a motorcycle, right? And guess what? He hits a bump and he felt like he ran over somebody. So he stops, turn around, go back and check. Same exact story over and over again. And the weird thing is, this is a emotional coping pattern he learned to survive. Now, he learned it as a child because of events, and he went into really bizarre stories. I don't know if I should even tell those bizarre stories, but it's really, really bizarre stories because he'd watch something on the internet and then he'd be obsessing it in his mind, and then he ends up doing it or thinking he did something. And this is sexual stuff. So again,
Okay.
there's a lot of sexual OCD, obsessive compulsive behavior, and actions, and etc. So there's a lot of this out there. So the brain has a great system to keep you alive, but it also keeps you in an endless loop unless you consciously know how to shift it and change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Can we do a little bit of a recap? And then can we recap it in a way that for someone that is just tuning into you that really sees OCD as a disorder? And so let's just kind of do a recap about the label and about the loop and just on a level for someone who is just tuning into this and they really do believe that it is a disorder.
Yeah. So what are you saying? Explain why it's not a disorder?
Yes, I really recap it again that
Yeah.
it why it's not a disorder and why they're doing something successfully.
Well, the reason why it's not a disorder because it's a natural, innate coping mechanism to stay safe. Major events, some fear, some are witnessing, watching somebody else do it. By the way, if you watch your mom have a fear of spiders and she obsessively always looking for spiders, you watch this and you also create a physical reaction, an emotional reaction to her behavior, and then you hear her stories, they become your stories, and then you start to repeat the emotional pattern, right?
Okay, okay, stop for a second. I have to get up my piece list. All right. So what I mean by piece list, maybe you can explain to everybody what a
All right,
piece
so
list.
what I do sessions and I help people change their lives really. And we create a list of things you need to make peace with. I mean, we're talking about even before birth. Now, I don't believe in past lives, but I do believe that if, like one woman, she had her mother was raped on a snowbank by her father's best friend, and she's the product of this rape. So this will impact how your mother and family treat you, and it'll also impact your identity. So we say any unpleasant events from the before birth all the way to the present moment, and we're talking about interpersonal relationships, like how your dad treated you or your sister treated you. And we're talking about good stuff. The good stuff we keep good, but we're talking about the disruptions, the emotional hurts, the fears and stuff. So we look at the emotional dynamics because the weird thing is your brain will repeat that. So we look at that. We look at illnesses, accidents. We look at school as a major trainer of a lot of our problems today because there's a lot of trauma there. And again, by the way, when we're talking about trauma, trauma is an emotional education on how to survive in the world. You can call it post-traumatic stress disruption or discernment. So everybody has this inside of them. Some are not big, some could just be lots of little ones, still affect your life and your decisions. So we look at the events at school, your best friends, your boyfriend, sexual exposure, sexual experiences, I said illnesses, money issues, dealing with money, people with money, parents with money, your religion. Religion really jacks up a lot of people.
That's right.
School, religion, illnesses, accidents, childbirth. There's a lot of women have a lot of fibromyalgia, ME, lupus, childbirth trauma, marriage trauma, relationship trauma. All these impact us physically and emotionally. And so what we do is we go and you write this list. I know when you write the list, it's really big and horrific, but when we get done, we change memory. You go, I can't believe I made a big deal out of it because we flatten it out, we set you free, and it redirects your whole mind and your life. So a peace list are things you need to clean up. And when
Yeah,
we clean it up, you go check it again and it doesn't bother you. You're free.
that's
So,
right. And,
yeah,
and so as you move through level one, that's exactly what you will do. You will
yeah.
create the peace list. You will make peace with things that are hurting you today.
hmm Yeah, yeah. The level one is you can change yourself. You don't have to be a practitioner to take this course. You don't have to grow up and be one if you don't want to. It shows you how to be in control of your life. And we have a great community. You get free sessions. Our upper level practitioners are required to give free sessions to people in level one and two because you need help and they need to help you practice it as well. So it's a community that helps you grow and improve yourself. But the most important thing is knowing what you do inside you and taking control. Most people, I mean, they just take you can change yourself course. You know more than a psychologist knows about the brain, about memories and how to change them. They don't
That's
know, you know.
yes, it's true.
Most healing modalities don't know what it is that you get in level one. You can change yourself.
Yes, yes,
So
absolutely. So I have spiders. My mom's fear of spiders. My fear of spiders on my peace list now. So going back to what you were saying about spiders.
yeah, yes. Again, fears are mild symptoms of OCD. Some are a little bit more like this one lady. She's from Ireland, no, Australia, and her obsession was so big. Everywhere she went, obsessively looking everywhere to the parking lot, the store, the job, obsessively focusing on spiders. Now, again, she volunteered, and I don't know if I have that on YouTube or not. I do have a video where she came up, and she, like I said, it's huge. As a matter of fact, she booked a flight to go to America, and somebody said there's a spider somewhere. She immediately left, went to the airport, and went back home. How fearful it was. Like you said, everywhere, controlled her every existence. That's a form of OCD. And so in the train, I mean, it probably took me maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. I don't know how long it was. And by the time we're done, the fear was gone. And of course, I test everything. And so I said, hey, I brought my spider here. I have a spider named Sheila. I didn't really have one, but she didn't know that. And I said, I brought Sheila with me. She travels with me. She's a very nice girl, hairy legs, etc. And I said, and so I said, will you guys bring it? So we had this little box. And of course, normally if we said spider, she's out of the hotel. Boom. But eventually we got there and she cleaned it up. We opened the box up. There was no spider. She's disappointed. But her whole world changed. But what installed this fear was a movie, part one. She watched a movie about spiders.
Oh,
And the
wow.
next morning, Dad, got a bunch of cotton and spread it all out the backyard. And he made this makeshift spider. And she said, hey, come out, look out the window. And that was when the spider fear became real in her life. One major trauma, one major experience, even though it was a joke, even though logically she knows it was a joke, but it doesn't matter to the brain because it was real inside of her head. And that's what drove her behavior. Up until now, we're talking about 40 years, maybe 50 years that this problem was driving her life. And it's like gone,
Wow.
peaceful.
That's incredible. And you do have a couple of videos on spider fears on YouTube. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
for those of you that are interested, check
Yeah.
out Robert's YouTube channel. He has the largest, I believe the largest collection of free material. People,
Uh,
it's one of
maybe,
the
maybe, I don't know if it's the largest, but it's a large one.
it's large.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of stuff.
lots of stuff. And people have changed their lives just by watching your videos. Is simple.
Well, yeah. I mean, watching is one thing, applying is another ball game. But yeah, it's very educational. But the most important thing is learning how to take control of yourself. Learning how to change and adjust the memories that your brain is using to it's trying to keep you safe, but also keeps you enslaved. So, but yeah, so those are again, OCD is a self-protective mechanism. There's one lady had called me. She's in Canada, and she called to book a session with me, and she said she spent over $30,000 seeing psychotherapists and different therapies, and she still has a fear. Actually, got worse. She said, "I said, well, I guarantee you, I'll charge you $10,000." And at that time, I charged $1,200 for a 2 hour session. I'll charge you $10,000, and I don't know how many sessions I said I'd give you, and I guarantee you, when you're done, you can touch the doorknob. She couldn't touch a doorknob. Couldn't touch it at all. Her husband, he comes in, he has to strip down, take a shower. He has to wash his own clothes. And there was so many obsessive behaviors all around this. And then, I don't, not even halfway through the sessions, she said, I touched the doorknob and then I wasn't scared. And I actually took my daughter out for a walk, first time in years. So, and again, but what has installed this fear, and light switches and doorknobs, what had installed this fear is a childhood of harassment from her sister and her mother. And her sister had brought her boyfriend over, or husband to be, something like that. And they sided against her, and she noticed him and focused on him, how he was bad, the Antichrist, so to speak. And he noticed that he touched the light switch of the doorknob. And so her fear became so big, she didn't want to get close to that. So that's what locked her in. But again, I mean, the therapists, they don't know how to change memories. They don't. They give you they talk about it. Maybe you'll talk it out, or, give you if you take enough antidepressants, you can't feel nothing anyway. But it was still there, and it was still, and so we worked through this. Now, there are other obsessions that, again, these are what you call coping mechanisms some people learn, and it takes a little bit of work to change each and every one of them, depending on the person, depends on how good you are at it, and how many internal references you have. Like some, like some people, they don't have what you call a massive amount of references, so it's easier to change it, some less. And what drives the whole system is fear. And so we just kind of find the fear and we adjust it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would say eutaptics and faster EFT is different in than traditional therapy, mindfulness, or even medications that people use for OCD. It differs
Hmm.
in the area that you go and you find the emotional driver and you change
Hmm. Hmm.
the memories all connected to it, and you find the pattern, and you see exactly what happened on the inside of them to develop this coping mechanism.
Hmm. I mean, there's a famous Howie Mandel. Anybody know him? He
Yeah.
says he's got OCD. And on a talk show, he even tells you where he got it from. So I forgot what the event was, some event, and he became obsessive compulsive because of that event. And I said, that'd be easy to change, because it's driven by fear. So a lot of people, you don't have it, you do it. You
Hmm.
practice it. It's a safety mechanism built inside. So a lot of people, and by the way, they spend years in therapy talking about it. They can understand it right and left, but logically understanding why you have a problem doesn't change the neurological information in your brain.
That's right. I think I've seen it.
Logically, it's logically, it's not true, but emotionally, neurologically, the autonomic responding system makes you do it anyway,
Hmm.
unless you update that information. And by the way, I go deep, I go out, and I come out clean. That means you should be pretty clean. That means it'll be easier, less, or if not, completely gone.
Yeah, and what you do in a session, you really do test it.
Oh
You,
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah. And can you explain a little bit what that is? Because some people might not know. What do you mean you test it?
Well, again, when people have or experience a problem like a fear, they don't just have a fear. The fear is a theater within their minds. They have movies, they have plays, they have lots of emotional sensations. So inside of them, they do something internally, and I know that. So I help them with it. I find we call it it's very provocative. We call it pick, poke, and provoke. And then what we do is we pull it up to the top and we clean it all the way out. So again, so we just find ways that they can try to create the problem. Because usually when people have a problem, they make up the weirdest possible scary scenario just to stay with it,
Mhm.
or to produce it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, let's just say I'm really good at what I do.
I was going
I
to say
really am.
you're skillful at what you do, and I've experienced that in the sessions with you, which is really powerful. I'm looking forward to learning how you do the poking and the provoking. It's
It's something. I mean, it's something I learned, but also I witnessed. And the reason why I say that, my grandmother, she's very straightforward. Let's just say that. I'm from Oklahoma, and I usually pretty straightforward. I say as little words as I can, but I'm very direct.
Yep.
So my grandmother, we're sitting there at a family reunion, and Aunt Ruth comes in, and grandma goes, "Ruth, you gotten fat since the last time we saw you." Very direct. so so I just because I studied I bought this psychosensory process of being how to adjust memories. And what I discovered, if you actually go to the memory or the reference that creates the problem and you change it, you make some big changes. The change will be like that. Instead of beating around the bush, walking around the outside, just go right in there where the problem is, flatten it out. Of course, that was in my learning days. Now, by the way, I've been doing the tapping process for 26 years this last month. I've been working with thousands of people, the most craziest problems you could ever imagine. And so, I made a few mistakes as I'm learning because I didn't know, but you're not going to learn what you get from me from other people because it's my system. I created the system. Now there are segments out there that some people like. I didn't know provocative therapy existed. I just knew that it worked. And later on said, it's like provocative therapy. And I go watch their stuff. I said, well, their stuff isn't very good. You don't show you how to do it. So again, it's different. And then of course there's a lot of system psychosensory process. There's somatic processes. There's Gestalt there. There's all kinds of therapies mixed in. By the way, I didn't study those. I just figured out what worked and I accumulated, put it together, and create a product. And it's a
Mhm.
very succinct system. But when we're dealing with childhood traumas, installs this. Like the lady who she had to go check the stove 1,000 times to make sure it's turned off. Even though, and then I said, well, again, like I did with the kid, I said, well, what's going on inside your head? She says, in my mind, I see the stove on, and I remembered how the house almost got burned down because mom left it on. So here it is years ago, mom almost burnt the house down, big whoop all about it. So she, as a child, got so scared that the house had burned down. She had this obsession of always making sure that the fires, the stove was turned off. And
Mhm.
again, she's driven by the imagery in her mind.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's how it actually works. That's the mechanics of it. Now, if you don't know how to change the imagery and the emotional systems behind it, you got a disorder. And I just say you're talented.
Yes. So if anybody ever says disorder, it's because they really don't know how to change it. So we need to
Mhm.
slap a label onto it, and then we need to prescribe something, and then that's your solution. And then you
And
have
there's
to
nothing,
live the rest of
yeah,
your
there's,
life.
and there's nothing wrong with that if you like it. There's nothing wrong with you like it.
Truth. That's very
Because,
true.
I work with some people said, well, who will I be if I let it go? I said, happier, in control. Things won't affect you like they used to. You can actually do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. But we won't make anyone either if they don't want to change.
Mhm. I mean, it's your business. Matter of fact, no one ever said, I said, if you like it, let me help you make it stronger. And no one takes you up on it. They never
That's
said,
so true. Right there. I love that you said that. Right there.
yeah,
Exactly. Thank
that's
you.
it. I said, well, I said from 0 to 10, how bad is it? It's a 7. I said, you're an amateur. Let me help you be a professional at it. I know how it works.
That's so great. Oh, I love how you're so direct. Oh, that's so
Well, I mean,
good.
it's the truth. It is the
Yeah.
truth. You're only a 7 and you like it. Let me help you be better at it.
Yes, exactly. We want the best for you.
Well, like for example, the woman, I don't know exactly what it was. She couldn't drive. She couldn't. She lives in like Poland, and of course, she has a flat. And of course, she had some events that happened to her that she was so scared just to go from her flat all the way down to get groceries. It was so bad she couldn't ride in a train, plane, or automobiles, nothing. No taxi cab, afraid to leave her home. It got so bad that she had trouble even going to her own bathroom.
Wow.
And she escalated this and built the scenarios inside of her head. It got so big. And then, of course, working with me. Now, by the way, this person, I'd never worked with someone who had so much physical, emotional, and sexual trauma in my whole life. Really massively big stuff. But when we got done, she can travel on a plane, she can go in a taxi cab, and she can go down and buy groceries
She's
because
living.
it's all internalizations. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
one of our listeners asked actually a really powerful question regarding mindfulness. She said it's hard to stay present whether she's watching TV or being intimate because her brain just won't turn off. So how does tactics or faster EFT help people become more present?
Well, the key to understanding how the brain process information, every one of you do this. I do it, we all do it. And that means I feel unpleasant. I don't want to be here, so I'm going to escape. So they don't like being in the present moment, so they're looking for a way out. So diverting attention. So again, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever it is that you will use, shopping, cleaning, is a form of emotional escapism. So I call what I teach is directed mindfulness, which basically you're directing what you're mindful of and what you hold within yourself. So the fear of being present is a fear of being present because something happened and they don't want to be there with themselves. And so again, like if they're having sex and they don't want to be with, even though they love this partner, they like the partner, when they have sex, they don't want to be in their body. There's a reason. Something happened and they're dead. There was something that happened. Or like if you had school trauma, being able to sit in front of have a document in front of you to read it, all of a sudden you're not present and it looks like the words are jumping off the page because you've had school trauma. So a lot of our issues today of not being in our body, not being able to read, ADD and ADHD are just processes to avoid reading and learning. But you set them in front of a computer game that's been there hours so focused because of school traumas or emotional traumas. Could be not necessarily at school, could be dad or mom. So again, the idea that I don't want to be present in my body, I don't want to be here. And one of the earliest things that I've witnessed, especially with people who have either physical, early, young age physical traumas, sexual traumas, physical traumas, they have a tendency to escape from their body into an internal fantasy world, an emotional escapism. Like they're in class, but they're out playing games in their mind or hunting or climbing trees because this is emotional escapisms. And so we call it avoidaholic or escapeaholic. And so it's driven by, I don't like where I am. I don't know how to deal with what I am and what's going on. But when I teach directed mindfulness, we go in and we start changing the direction of your mind, changing what you hold, being in yourself, being in your body, and it's safe to be in your body because we change what's in our mind that prevents us from being in our body. So it's very directed.
That's right. So,
I'm going to just say this: mindfulness practices is to meditate
right. Yeah.
hours and on end. I mean, Joe Dispenza, he says, let's go meditate for 3 hours a day. And hopefully in 9 months or 6 months, you might get a change. I said, let's go find out what it is that you're trying to avoid and just clean it out. By the way, when you focus on a good memory, that's meditation. When you focus on a bad memory, that's meditation.
Hmm. That's
And
true.
it feels really real, both of them.
Hmm.
So I say, let's just direct what's in your mind.
All right. Hmm.
What, stunned you on that one?
Yes, mine's still processing. Okay. All right. So with you tactics and faster EFT, the directed mindfulness really is processing why you want to escape.
Internal state control and also cleaning up your memories.
Yeah.
Because remember, we're not running from what's inside, we're cleaning up what's inside.
Hmm.
And that's
Right.
and again, you can be a professional vegetator. You can meditate for 10 hours a day. It doesn't change anything. You're just good at meditating. It's called emotional escapism. The
Right.
true artist or the true emotionally intelligent person, internal regulation going in and cleaning up what it is that you're trying to escape. And here's the fact, too, you got to understand right now is real. What happened before now in your past is not real. Your brain captured it and organized it and used it on you. And if you don't like what it's using on you, go in and change it. And therefore, you set yourself free from what happened in the past. It's over anyway. You're only dealing with what you captured, how you organized it in your own head. Your father and your mother and your brother aren't doing it to you anymore. It's you. They could be dead and gone. And you're still playing the game. So I said, well, do you have any pets? No, my mother doesn't like pets. I said, do you live with your mother? She said, no, she's been dead for 10 years. So here it is. We're trying to live our life based on our experiences,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. So if we clean up our past, we're able to be in the present moment, and we're not gonna, or correct me. What am I saying? Is
Well,
that
I mean, even the present moment is a trance too.
that's true?
It's
Yes.
your present moment's a trance. Everything we go from one of the books I read. I don't think I have it here. No, I don't see it here. It's called Monsters and Magical Sticks. There's no such thing as hypnosis. And one of the things I captured from this book is this one thing. You're always in a state of mind. You're always in a trance. And your quality of life is determined based on the quality of trances you have. Happy memories are trances. Happiness is a trance. Miserableness is a trance because it's all produced from the mind. And it's going to only use what you already have inside.
Mhm.
And if you have bad stuff inside, you're going to have some pretty bad trances.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So the goal is, what's the goal?
The goal is being in control of your own processes and thinking. The goal is to clean out your memories that are unpleasant and unkind. The
Mhm.
goal is to live a productive life by being happy or being contented within yourself. If
Mhm.
bad things happen, you handle it, you move past it, and you continue forward. You take no souvenirs unless they feel good.
Mhm. So what can our listeners do right now to take control of their limbic system, of their brain, of these trances?
Well, the thing I would say is learn how to be in control of yourself. Learn how to be the master of your own thoughts. And the way to do that is find a training that will give you that. I know this guy that you can hear his voice now. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I promise you, it works as you use it. You don't
Mhm.
have to believe in it, it'll still work because it's mechanical.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm. So when the brain gets stuck in these loops, how does a person, so like someone who is not in level one right now, they really don't like they're just tuning in, they're joining. What can they do to stop these loops? Is there anything that they can practice right now?
Yeah. The brain has a great way of updating memories if you understand it. I call it a defractionation. Defractionation is because our brain learns in fractions, little pieces, and it puts it together. All of a sudden, you know how to walk, you know how to type on a computer. So when your brain is triggering a response or a fear, if you notice that and you stop it and you redirect, feel good, happy memory, anything positive. Once you feel good, you go back and check what it was. This is how the brain will flatten out parts of that memory. There's many elements to this memory because
Yeah.
inside of a memory, it could be 100 different emotional references and etc. By merely stopping the pattern, not just stopping and escaping, because here's what the brain does. You feel really bad and you go eat a piece of cheesecake. Well, You didn't change anything about the memory. You just went and shoveled cheesecake and you felt good. But while you're feeling good and you think about the memory, this is when the introduction of new sensations will be introduced into the memory and it could flatten out a little bit. So the art, the real science to updating memories and introducing something into the memory that will adjust the memory. Memories are very malleable and flexible. You can make a memory worse than what it is, or you can make it really positive if you're really good at it. So if you were to learn how to handle or adjust, take control now, it's the art of adjusting the memory. We escape to feel good, look at the memory, it could flatten it out.
Mhm.
That's how you do it. So you can tap on yourself. We use tapping, or you can use anything that makes you feel good. Go to happy memory, or meditate and feel good, but go back and check the memory of the part that bothered you. That's how the brain will update memories.
Mhm.
You can
Yeah,
use anything pretty much to do that.
that's right.
But there's an art to this. There is a real art and a fine art because some memories have a lot of stuff in it. A
True.
lot of stuff.
So ultimately, what you're saying, if you have a brain, you want to know how to use that brain. You want to skillfully know how to adjust. And
Right.
so if you have a brain and you're listening to this, you really want to know how to use your brain and you want to understand yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
do that in level one.
Yeah. The big problem, I said this is a big problem. If your brain is your enemy, you really got a problem.
That is so true.
If you think your brain is an enemy, you've got to make peace with your enemies. The
Yeah.
smartest part about you is not consciousness, it's the unconsciousness, which are the memories. Knowing how to use the smart part about you can manifest anything you want. Anything.
Mm, wow.
Health, wealth,
Yeah.
positivity.
Yeah.
Again, remember the brain is a natural survival system. It will recycle the bad stuff and the good stuff, which is bigger, which has more references, the good or the bad. If it's bad, you're going to have a fun ride and it ain't going to be a really good one. It's like a horror movie.
Mm.
It's not a happy one.
Yes, I hear you. All right. So for those people that are listening and they're still feeling maybe shame or out of control, that's how they live their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's become their
Mm-hmm.
normal and they feel that sense of brokenness. What do you want them to know about this work that you do? You tactics, faster EFT.
Well, first of all, we know you're not broken. We know that you've had some stuff happen to you. Everybody has. And I know that it can change and we can help you change. We have a free course, 5-day free course. Take it. We have trainings. You can change yourself. Invest in your head. Learn how to be the master of your own mind. Now, I will say this. If you've had a lot of stuff, that's the most scariest thing is to get close to your stuff. But I will tell you, it's in you. No matter where you go, it goes with you. So the best thing is try to figure out how to unload it, clean it up, adjust it, and set yourself free. You're no longer that kid who's been abused. You're no longer, that's not true anymore. You are here today, and today's the day to take control. Invest in you, invest in you, and invest in you. That's your
Yeah.
mind. It's not spending $5,000 going to a trip to some exotic island or climb some mountain to find yourself. The investment is changing how you see yourself, how you represent yourself, and how you represent other people inside you.
Mhm.
Because it's all about you.
Yeah. And coming from a professional escaper, escapism, I don't know what you want to call it, but
Escapaholic.
yeah, escapaholic. There we go. I've been certified in 8 different modalities.
Hmm.
And so I know what I'm talking about, or I know what Robert's talking about when he's talking about escapism. And I
Hmm.
know that level one, that is truly the answer. That is where you will learn how to take control of your life. That's
Hmm.
where you will learn
Hmm.
how the inner processes work, and you can skillfully
Hmm.
do the work yourself. You're
Yeah.
not you're not dropped here. You're not lost. You're not alone. There's
Hmm.
something that you truly can do.
Yeah.
So, Robert, any final thoughts for our listeners?
The only final thought I would ever say is that learn how to love yourself and like yourself from within yourself. Be the mental, emotional janitor of your head. If something caused you problems in your mind, pluck it out, change it, adjust it, and redesign your future by redesigning what you hold about the past. All you have is you. It's time to get to know you and clean up and adjust what you hold within you. That's the key.
Yeah.
This changed my life. My life was not going in a great place until I started learning how to be the master of my own life and my own head and my own world.
Mhm.
And the number one thing for this is that I have a skill. When bad things happen, I know how to maneuver through it, clean up, and move forward. I can save myself.
That's right. Yeah. And no one's coming to save you. There we
Yeah.
go. So thank you so much for hanging out with us on another episode of the Robert Jean Experience. We're so glad you're here, and send in your questions if you want them answered on this
Mhm.
podcast. See you next time.
All right. See you guys. Peace. Well, when you visualize, you internalize. When you worry, you bring it about.
Yeah.
And that's all it was worrying and imagining.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when Brent would drive truck, he would have this one fear that if he would ever go over a bridge, and he would do this while he's driving, and usually it was where he was tired, he would have that imagination, okay, if I get over this bridge, what if there's a deer? What am I going to do if there's a deer on this bridge and the bridge isn't wide enough because he has his he's in the semi truck. So one day,
There
after
it was.
doing this like multiple times, he gets up to the bridge and he's like, oh shit, there's a deer in the middle of the bridge. And he found out what the deer would do. The deer, and that was his fear. Like, what would the deer do? And the deer actually jumped over the bridge and into the water. And it was a big bridge, and it was a
Uh,
a big drop. But the deer jumped. So,
oh yeah.
but that fear came alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do a lot of weird stuff to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.